Today we're looking at the Declaration of Independence. Hello, welcome to the Daily Bellringer. Please don't forget to subscribe and take a look at the questions down in the description. So in my previous episode of the Daily Bellringer, I covered the writing of the Declaration of Independence and how Thomas Jefferson, along with the Committee of Five, drafted the document and then got its approval from the Continental Congress on July 4th of 1776. I do have a few other bell ringers that also cover some of the history of the document itself, and in the description I'll include a link to a copy of the text from the Declaration. But today what I want to cover is, what does the Declaration itself actually say? What are the written words in the Declaration of Independence? When writing the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson did recognize the historic significance of the document. I mean, this was a group of colonies challenging the authority of arguably the most powerful nation in the world at the time, the British. So he was well aware that a lot of people would be reading his words, so he needed to come up with a good introduction or preamble to get the reader's attention and set the foundation for the rest of the document. So what I'd like to do is break down the preamble and discuss some of the key parts of it. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So basically what Jefferson is saying here is, we are breaking up, almost like a boyfriend and girlfriend would break up. The American colonies believed it was time to break away from Britain and become a nation of their own that deserves equal standing in the world. Then Jefferson goes on to say, now I'm going to tell you why we are going to break up or break away. Now we get to arguably the most famous line from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Truths that are self-evident basically means it's obvious that all men are created equal. Of course, here is the great hypocrisy of the Declaration. Slavery still existed and was allowed to continue. In fact, most of the members of the Continental Congress owned slaves. Jefferson himself was a slave owner. Of course, later in the document, Jefferson does criticize the institution of slavery, but still that doesn't get rid of the fact that here we're stating that everyone was equal, yet the nation was not willing to treat everyone equally. And of course, this is an issue that is still not resolved even to this day. Likewise, equal rights were not extended to women either. So this is really something that you really have to think about here with this statement. But despite the double standards of the beginning of the statement, the next passage is truly profound, that we are endowed, or in other words, given by their Creator certain unalienable rights. Unalienable just means that it cannot be taken away. Now, why is this statement so profound? Jefferson was saying that by virtue of simply being human, we are given rights. And our rights do not come from a king or an elected body of representatives, that our rights do not come from a government. Rather, they come from a Creator or a higher power than anything here on earth. So that means no one here on earth can take away those rights. Then he goes on to say that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, really what Jefferson did here was kind of do a copy and paste. He copied some lines from a political theorist named John Locke, who had written, all people have the right to life, liberty, and property. Jefferson just tweaked it a little to fit the Declaration and make it his own. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government. Jefferson now stresses that the role of government is to make sure the rights of the people are protected. Then he makes another profound statement, stating that the government's power comes from the people. It's not, a monarchy or natural right of the government to have power. The government must have the people's consent to have its power. Then he goes on to say that if a government is not protecting the rights of the people, then the people have the right to rebel and make a new government. Basically what the colonists were arguing, saying that the British were not protecting or respecting their rights, so they had a right to create their own new nation. Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to have time to cover the entire document in this Bellringer, but the remainder of the document is basically just a laundry list of complaints against the king and parliament. And what I would encourage you to do is look at the link in the description to the Declaration's text and see how many of the complaints you can match up with laws that were passed before the Revolution. So look back at these Sugar, Stamp, Townshend, and Intolerable Acts, and then look at the statements in the Declaration and match them up with laws that were passed in those acts. Then look at the Statement of Independence at the end of the document, where Jefferson clearly states that the colonies are now officially broken away from Britain. So with that, hopefully you learned something, and thanks for watching.